Alvin Ailey made space for us inside of Revelations to be queer. He made space for us to be gay inside this act of black faith, this dance of testimony.
He arches back to haul her up from the floor onto her point.
As complicated as appropriation and not ascribing where things come from is, it's really fucked up and complicated. It does do something that, like, it did do something, especially with Anna Teresa de Keer's marker, that like that couldn't have happened otherwise, which is that like 1 million little girls around the world did this and had no idea that it came from Rosa.
You know, there's so many parts to this, the queer, the indigenous, the surrogation. And then, you know, the piece that we begin with in Paramodernities, which is something that I want to ask Netta and Mark about, which is the question of sacrifice. And a large part of the text that you just listened to at the beginning of this piece from Paramodernities is about the sacrifice that the dancer makes to the dance. And so I was interested, you know, both in thinking about what sacrifice means in modern cultures, particularly as we're living in this moment of COVID-19, where all kinds of disastrous plans have been floated that presume that part of the population, for example, can be sacrificed for the health of the other part, but also where large numbers of people are sheltering in place while small groups of often disadvantaged people are still working on the front lines of this disease.
You've corrected my sense of it. I always wanted to attribute that strictness strictly to Cage. I felt like I always wanted to make him be the bad father, you know, so to speak, the asshole dad, you know, who's laying down the law. But maybe that's not giving Cunningham enough credit for being, you know, and it's a sign of my ignorance. But the point is that, you know, that sort of embrace of what one might call a deviant approach is always something that I'm concerned with and obsessed with and want to cultivate and preserve. And the cultivation and preservation of the deviant approach for me, you know, emerges out of, you know, the intensity of my own connection and upbringing, so to speak, in Black music, but also in Black social dance, I would say. And maybe just more specifically in sort of Black working class social arrangements.
So you've done this, you know, amazing work. You've done, you know, you've explored, you've done, if it's research, it's like performance and research at the same time. And you're also performing in it, and some of them you're not, you know, so you're directing it. And so you won't, I don't know if you'll know, like the question you just said, like I'm trying on these forms like a character, you don't know the outcome yet. Do you? I mean, maybe you do.
I like the question that we are left with because it feels like a charge. We would imagine the answer should be yes, but every yes is going to be pointed inward and outward in different ways and intersect and contradict with someone else's vision of what freedom means, what it requires. It feels useful to me in the ways that questions in poems feel useful. They invite me to struggle. They invite me to acknowledge both the possibility and the impossibility, or the imponderability of something like freedom.
Don't you want to be free? 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 Don't you want to be free?
And choreography then becomes, I think very powerfully, an alternative vision of political theory that takes the bodies seriously. And if that's the case, then number 6, focusing on the disabled, or let's call it the otherly abled body, then becomes a way of articulating what should constitute choreography as politics in this paramodern track. So for me, that's the epic arc of the cycle, and it's super compelling.
They do not duplicate modernity, but create what we would like to call paramodernities.